Hello, and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I am Daryl Griffiths, and this is my weekly 180 where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. This week, there's a lot to get through, and due to the UK bank holiday, it's a short week. So my analysis at the end will also be much shorter, but still really good. So please don't give me a 1-star rating. In my SAP techie news this week, from the SAP News Center, a Forrester study concludes that companies using SAP Integration Suite saw a 345% return on investment over 3 years and a payback period of just 6 months. The report noted a 30% increase in integration developer efficiency for integration tasks. The detailed report is available free to download, subject to registration, on the links I've included in the description down below. Back in episode 28, I talked about the critical 9.8 vulnerability in SAP BOBJ and how there was only a patch and no workaround. There are no workarounds mentioned and no information on how to prevent access to the vulnerable REST endpoint. This left customers in a predicament, especially those that are unable to patch for a number of reasons. Well, SAP have gone and updated the SAP note with a workaround. Now, some might say that sitting and waiting is always needed, but in this particular instance, the vulnerability was found by SAP internally, notified by SAP, then fixed in a patch by SAP, and an SAP note created. Especially because the SAP note was released at version 9. Version 9. I think a workaround should have already been documented and could have already been known before a patch was even created. What's going on? The note reference is 3479478, and the link is down below. Only just popping up on my newsfeed, but last month at the end of July, UKG, a leading provider of HR payroll workforce management solutions, announced that ex-co-CEO of SAP, Jennifer Morgan, has been appointed CEO of UKG. Now, I can imagine UKG's solutions being one of those making it into the shortlist for companies as they disassemble their ERP stacks into disparate capabilities as we move towards the sunset of SAP Business Suite 7. The link is down below. An interesting article on CIO.com on the subject of rising cloud costs. The article is from the point of view of Civo, a low-cost competitor to the main big three hyperscalers Azure, AWS and GCP. In a survey conducted by Civo, it suggests cloud customers are saying their costs jumped by more than 25% in the past year. The drivers for this increase are thought to be inflation, deployment of AI, and energy costs. Some further sense is made of this later in the article by Mayank Bhargava, VP of Cloud Modernization at CGI, who says that as organizations continue their digital transformation journeys, they are migrating more critical workloads and data to the cloud, which naturally leads to higher costs. The link is down below. News in Azure this week, as Azure Front Door WAF gains a JavaScript challenge. Sometimes life is crazy. Just 2 weeks back in episode 28, link above, I highlighted a possible solution for fronting a web application firewall, WAF, with a basic authentication static web page to provide a simple extra layer of protection for a vulnerable web app that couldn't be patched. Now, Azure have gone and put a solution in public preview for Azure Front Door, the global region-independent content access point for web apps. I can't take credit. These things take months to curate, as I've been involved in a few solutions that have gone through development like this before. The link is down below. Also in Azure, a public preview allows Azure Storage to gain customer-managed failover. This new feature allows premeditated failover of a storage account in the event of a DR test, or even a known global issue. The docs give an example of an inbound hurricane, for example. The link to the release details is down below. In AWS this week, AWS Systems Manager for SAP, SSM-SAP, becomes SAP ABAP Stack aware and gains the ability to start and stop the entire SAP system. This allows visibility and control of the different layers of the application stack or of the entire stack as a whole. One thing to note is that this is currently only for single node systems, i.e. the IKEA flat-packed all-in-one SAP system running app and DB on the same VM. The link is down below. Another AWS item, AWS Backup now supports cross-region and cross-account copying of SAP HANA backups on EC2. This new feature does as it says and enables customers to copy SAP HANA database snapshot backups across AWS regions and AWS accounts within their AWS organizations. This is a great feature for what I call a cold DR approach, where backup and restore is the method for service restoration in a second or even third region. The link for this article is down below. SAP Kernel news. SAP Kernel 7.22 patch level 1400 is released. Some people might be shocked that 7.22 is still going, but it is a fully supported kernel until 2027 and is now even into the EX3 build stream. See my explanation at the end of episode 15 for what EX2 and EX3 are relating to. What's in this new 7.22 stack level? Well, it's the IMDS v2 that I discussed in detail at the end of episode 18. It's almost like I knew that feature would make it into other kernels. Maybe I've been doing this job for too long. Also, this release includes native support for Linux Systemd and some RFC and SNC changes. Please note this kernel release is not supported for rolling kernel switch, RKS. Remember, with RKS there is a way to check the level and tell if RKS is supported before you plan to use RKS. Wow, that was a lot this week. My favourite item this week is the article on CIO.com on the subject of rising cloud costs. This is something that I can directly relate to. I've spent a significant time analysing SAP hosting costs for a particular customer of mine hosting their SAP systems in Microsoft Azure. Anyone who has followed me on LinkedIn since November 2022 will have had the pleasure of my festive, merry SAP on Azure Cost Savings Must Countdown. In that series of 24 posts, I'll put the link in the description down below, I outline numerous ways of saving money on SAP hosting costs in Azure. I also provide a pretty horrific set of puns, but I'll leave that present waiting for you. The problem with the cost of cloud hosting is that prices will always go up on existing resources. So for example, the cost of a 128GB disk will always increase. I've actually seen a set of prices decrease, but let's just say it's a rare thing. Some price rises are not even related to inflation or cost of energy, as mentioned in the CIO.com article, but instead it can be related to currency exchange rates. Customers have to remember, in the cloud they are effectively only ever renting portions of the underlying infrastructure. It's a little like the guy in the advert. You never actually own a Patek Philippe, you merely look after it for the next generation. Except the guy clearly owns it and is looking to get around inheritance taxation by gifting it forward well before he dies. Except the guy clearly owns it and is looking to get around inheritance taxation by gifting it forward well before he dies. What is the biggest cost differentiator in an SAP on Azure landscape, you might be thinking? It's definitely the size of the database virtual machines and the disk storage assigned to them. These big machines cost a lot of money, especially for HANA databases, but there are ways that costs can be reduced. Techniques for hosting databases in a condensed way, strategies for choosing and assigning disk storage in an efficient way, features for compression of database data and shifting data into hot and warm classifications. Adjusting the mindset on what disaster recovery strategy is actually needed for the business. Dare I mention it, but considering archiving. Applying those things to an SAP landscape hosted in the cloud is not easy, generally because the skill set required involves an expertise in both cloud and SAP, plus a level of empowerment to question business decisions around service levels and business continuity. Customers want zero data loss, but don't want to pay for the infrastructure that actually guarantees that across the span of the business process. What is actually needed in a cloud-hosted system is proactive and empowered technical team continually looking at new cloud features and technologies that can improve the service and also reduce cost. A perfect example in Azure is premium SSD v2 disks. A brief look at the technology, and it looks like an improvement on v1 with the assumption that it must cost more money. But in actual fact, if you run the maths, it might not. Check it out. Another example is adoption of newer series of virtual machines. Higher density of CPU cores can make newer series virtual machines more cost effective. What I might be alluding to is that while database virtual machines cost a lot of money, apathy costs way more. As always, reference links are in the description, drop me a comment down below, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.